Hi again, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm, and today I want to talk to you about why potting soil like this is far superior to natural soil. And in case you think that's a controversial statement, I have to assure you that as a commercial grower, both here on my farm growing roses and for another wholesaler that I work for, there is no comparison. Potting soil is just the way to go when producing and propagating young plants. Now, there is another side to this story. I'm just not going to tell it to you. I'm going to leave that to somebody else. Ashley from the Gardening in Canada channel has agreed to make a companion video to this where she's going to talk about the benefits of natural soil versus potting soil. So if you want to hear that side of the story, I'm going to leave that linked below the video. Before I continue on, let's talk about what is potting soil. Now, potting soil is an artificial mix. It's made up of a bunch of ingredients. I'll go over those in just a second, but it's intended to create a replacement for the function of garden soil when you're growing in containers or as young plants in propagation. The idea of potting soil is that it's lighter, it has good moisture retention capacity, it has good drainage, it has good air holding capacity, and it's typically free of things like weed and plant pathogens. So that's the whole purpose of potting soil, to make a good mix without some of the disadvantages of natural soil. Now, things that they typically will put into it, you'll see wood products, things like composted wood or shredded wood or composted bark mulch. You'll see things like peat moss, coconut fiber. Other components will include things like vermiculite or perlite or pumice, sometimes sand if they want it to be a little bit heavier. So those are the typical components, and that's the reason why they put it together. I did outline some of the advantages there, but weight is a big one. How heavy is the soil that you're putting into your pot? I just dug out of my garden. I have a fairly heavy clayish soil in my yard here, and boy is my arm getting tired even holding on to it. When you're producing plants in containers, in a gallon of a container, a typical potting soil may be something less than a pound. Natural soil can be up to 10 or 12 pounds for the same volume of soil. So it's just a beast to handle. And imagine if you're dealing with a much larger container, something like this guy beside me here, that's just hundreds of pounds of difference between potting soil and natural soil. Another big advantage of potting soil is that it is mixed and actually engineered to have great qualities in terms of moisture retention, air holding capacity, and drainage. And you can actually have it custom made for the crops that you're growing. If you're growing a shrub like this, then you probably want to go with something that is a little more free draining. And if you're going for young plants or seedlings, you might choose something that's a little bit finer so the roots can reach through it a little bit easier. That's not flexibility that you can have when you're dealing with natural soil. Two more qualities of potting soil that are engineered and so controlled right out of the gate: pH and fertilizer. And these two are relatively intertwined because the pH value of your soil medium, or your soilless medium in this case, is going to affect the availability of your nutrients. And naturally, most producers of potting soil place their pH just slightly on the acidic side but close to neutral, so it's kind of in that optimum range for nutrient availability. And of course, out of the box, they don't come with a whole ton of nutrients in them. They usually either put in a very small amount, so basically that leaves you with the greatest level of flexibility of adding the nutrients that are appropriate to the crop without dealing with what's in that soil and what's being released naturally. Those things I've discussed so far, the structural qualities of potting soil, those are great, but they're not the main event. The main event when it comes to potting soil is its relative freedom from weed seeds and plant pathogens. And this is the killer app. This is what convinced everybody in the industry that it was a good idea to switch over to artificial potting soil. So this is within the living memory of the industry. Within the last 100 years or so, it was a very common practice to be mixing in regular natural soil into your propagation soil, into your potting soil, as you planted up containers with young plants in them. And what they were finding was that there was a prevalence of root-borne pathogens, things that were coming from the soil that were getting into young plants, into young seedlings and young cuttings when they were at their most vulnerable, and they would just take over and wipe out sporadically all these different crops. And once they switched over to a fully artificial kind of potting soil, those things became far less frequent and much easier to contain and control. So that was the big one. And I know that some people are going to take me to task for using the term sterile. Like, you know, you hear that term used a lot with potting soil, and in truth it's not proper. It's nothing out there is sterile. We're not dealing with an operating room here, but I'm going to call it relatively sterile, which I know is bad too. But think of these two things. If you took a cutting board that you took out of the dishwasher, put it on the counter. You had another cutting board that you'd use to slice your raw chicken the night before, and you took those and you served platters of chopped vegetables on those. Which one would you feel safer eating off of? Well, clearly the one that came out of the dishwasher. Not sterile, no, but certainly not easily known to be contaminated with something that can be dangerous to you. The same way that the bacteria that's dangerous coming from raw chicken is dangerous to your body, that's the same way that the existing life that's teeming inside of natural soil is dangerous to young plants that don't have a lot of defenses yet. They're just, you know, little seedlings, little cuttings, and they're going to struggle to fight off anything that's coming from the soil. So where should you be using potting soil? Well, certainly in something like a plug tray in propagation, certainly small containers that come out of propagation, larger plant containers or plant pots, you know, 1 gallon, 2 gallon, 3 gallon, 5 gallon, any kind of the portable sizes of plants, those are a good place to consider using potting soil. Even large containers for your patio and deck or around the yard, in larger sizes would be appropriate to consider potting soil. It's really when you get into very large areas, like a large raised bed, or you get into the garden itself, that my argument starts to fall apart. And this is where the advantages of natural soil start to take over, and I'll leave that part to Ashley in the companion video that she's producing for her channel. That's the Gardening in Canada channel, which I will link below. All right, thanks so much for listening to my thoughts today on why potting soil is better, and tune in to Ashley's channel for the response.